Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sharin Stories. I'm your host, Peaks, with my two beautiful co-hosts, Sarah States and Paul Christian. This is not a therapy session. You will not find mental health professionals here, nor are we a substitute for said people. We are just people sharing our stories with mental health. On today's episode, we have Madi Buczkowski, a national champion baton twirler, a sentence I'm so pumped I get to say because it's badass as hell. As if anything else needs to be said, she also has a master's in public policy from Duke and now works as a government consultant. In her free time, she is constantly working with advocacy groups to bolster their communication strategies on topics like immigration, women's issues, and healthcare. But most importantly, Madi is known by her friends and family as someone who's ambitious, kind, and a hell of a singer. So, everyone, please welcome Madi Buczkowski. And I can't imagine I'm not butchering that.
You're
But
actually saying it exactly right. I'm really impressed.
I got a little Ukrainian. I know that's not Ukrainian, but it's close enough that my dad has forced me to learn at least somewhat how to pronounce all these names.
Just Polish.
But it is very nice to meet you, Madi. But I cannot do you the justice that you deserve. So really quickly, if you can just give us a little bit about yourself before we get into your story, that'd be fantastic.
Of course, yeah. So I have a bit of a weird background. I grew up in Buffalo, New York. Was good friends with Sarah through church choir since we were in kindergarten. Did a lot of singing, dancing, acting growing up. Actually went to school for musical theater at Kent State. And kind of made a shift late in my experience there, which is really where the story comes from, but switched to wanting to help people. Did AmeriCorps service for a couple of years, went back to school, got my master's of public policy at Duke, got really interested in kind of government and helping things there, helped with some advocacy efforts with like the Women's March and through the last 4 years, and now work as a government consultant and also kind of helping the nonprofits and advocacy groups on the side.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. So do you still do any like singing and acting, anything like that?
I do. I mean, it's just for fun at this point. I kind of realized that I wanted it to be more of a hobby and it wasn't as fun when it was, there's a lot of pressure on it to be a job. So I did do one show in Atlanta when I was living there, just like a community show. It was a lot of fun to be back up on stage. Obviously, COVID has made it hard to get involved in any of that right at the moment, but hopefully someday I'm hoping to get back up there.
And she is great.
Thanks, Sarah.
That's all I've been hearing from Sarah all week, so I believe it. So you've kind of done a decent amount. You jumped around. You've had some different thoughts, and obviously it's a big jump from acting to public policy later on. So I'm sure that will play into your story. And without that, I mean, I think we should just jump right into it because I'm excited to hear a little bit more. So I'm going to give you the floor. You go until you're done, and then we'll hopefully have a bunch of questions for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. So my story kind of starts, I think my childhood played a part in it, but it was really college. So I will start there and it'll probably fill in a little bit as we go. But so I was at Kent State, went there on almost a full ride scholarship to do musical theater, and they have like a really high ranked musical theater program. So it was an amazing experience. I had grew up singing and dancing and everything. Knew that was kind of what I wanted to do. Wasn't totally sure. Was semi there because a guidance counselor had told me that I was too smart to go into anything music related. So a little bit of that was a challenge. But I for my first couple of years, I really did have a very good experience. I was in a bunch of shows, was seeing some success. Got to work at a theme park, actually at Darien Lake, for one summer as an entertainer, and then worked in a theater in West Virginia for the next summer. So was having a lot of fun. And it kind of started at the beginning of my junior year. I had always been very weight conscious. I am Lebanese, and so we are curvy humans, and just not really what people want in the dance world, and especially the stage dance world. And I'm also short. So so it was a little bit tough with those body image issues, and it was kind of made worse by all of my instructors that would say things like they meant well, I think, in that they wanted us to be successful, but at the same time saying things like, "You can eat breakfast, but I don't want to see it." It kind of can get to you a little bit. So I started really having severe issues with my weight and it fluctuating, yo-yoing. It did get to the point where I wasn't eating any solid food for almost a year, and everything was in juice and liquid form. And just some protein powder. So that was really bad, and people generally didn't notice all that much. I don't think as much as they maybe should have because I was congratulated for it, and it was one of those things where people said, "Oh, you look so good. You're so in shape. You're so skinny. You look amazing," and which fuels it, right? It makes it way worse. Makes you feel like you should keep doing those things. And it finally got to the point where at the end of my junior year, I was playing a role where I had to jump rope in a sports bra while belting my face off. And so I was really obsessed with there not being any jiggles when that happened. Got to the point during that show where I was actually passing out right after the big number a little bit because I didn't physically have enough energy to do so to get through it all. And so I would go off stage and I had like a pillow and I'll pass out and I'd know what was happening. And then would be able to continue on a little bit later. So that was probably rock bottom with the weight. It- and that kind of thing really it just did things to my head, I think, as you could imagine. Thinking that you're not good enough, thinking that you're not going to be able to do it, developed into a really intense depression that people knew about but weren't really sure what to do. And we were all young and everybody was struggling in their own way. I had luckily a really great support system in my two best friends that I lived with. And they tried to coax me to eat, they tried to help me through. And I also developed a really severe alcohol problem where it got to the point where I wasn't making it through a day without having at least like 3 to 4 drinks throughout the day. Sometimes drank in the morning to get through things, would have shots and stuff before dance class to get through that. So my friends were very helpful and supportive, but not really telling me that it was wrong, just kind of making sure that I was okay through the whole thing. And I was pretty good at hiding it, except for them, to the point where my parents didn't know. And Sarah can attest that my parents are really wonderful people and really like want to help and love me a lot and are super supportive. But I was not at home, and so they didn't really know. And so it got to the point, I think, finally, where my best friend actually called my mom and said, "Hey, um, we're really worried." I hadn't gotten out of bed in like 2 days. And so they were like, "We're really worried about her." My mom ended up coming to Kent to get me and bring me back home. And thus started my journey and kind of trying to get better. But to be completely honest, I don't think my heart was into it at that point. I still didn't think what I was doing was wrong or detrimental in life. I couldn't really see past the next few months, and we had the big showcase where you would get an agent and stuff in New York City. And so I just needed to get there, and that's what I was seeing. And so unfortunately, I mean, they got me in to see a doctor who had known me since I was a kid. And I started doing therapy, talk therapy. But if your heart's not into it, I'm not sure that that always helps. And so I was not into it, and I would just say what I needed to get out of there. Um, and so it didn't really help. Kept struggling. I got to the point around March where I ended up having to go on meds, on antidepressants, and I desperately didn't want to. Um, but my mom wasn't giving me a choice. She said, "You're either going to come home and you're not going to finish college right now, or you're going to go on these meds. And that's the only way that you're going back to finish." So And I did actually take them every day like I was supposed to. And it did help. I think it helped me see a little bit clearer. But I finally got to showcase, and the night of showcase, I had a huge breakdown to my mom and said I wasn't sure what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go, but I didn't think that this was probably the best path for me anymore. Um, and so kind of became that started my recovery. I started eating again a little bit. You have to incrementally do that, but I started building that back up again, kind of building up to a place where I was much more functional and could kind of see clearer. Did finish college. I went and decided that I needed to do something that wasn't focused on me at all, and where I was out of the equation. And the only thing I could think of was doing service. And so I found the AmeriCorps program and got to do a year actually 2 years altogether. But my first year in AmeriCorps, where I worked with inner city kids and on getting them into college, into whatever was next for them. We pushed a lot of people into some cool like trade jobs and whatnot, but making sure that these kids had all the resources that they needed to and the structure around them to do well through this time. So I gotten to the point where food was okay. I was mentally in a better spot, but I hadn't stopped drinking, and so I wouldn't drink all day because the kids needed me, and then I would get home and drink, like, 2 bottles of wine, and it was, like, really, really intense, and unfortunately, I did have a friend that enabled me at that time and wanted to do it with me and drink with me every night, and so, didn't see really any problem there, and so that really continued for the whole year that I was there, and it did help with my mental state and my ability to see myself in a more positive light, to have a job that didn't matter what my body looked like and didn't matter, really anything about me or my talents. It was all about the kids. But I don't think I ended up really getting help for drinking until the very end of that year. When my best friend from college, I finally told him, like, what my schedule looked like, and he was like, "Oh, you drink a lot." And that was, like, the first time that I think anybody had ever really said anything to me about that, um, and it kinda opened my eyes to, like, "Oh, maybe that's not normal. Maybe maybe this is too much, and I should cut it back," and so I stopped for cold turkey, for a couple months, because I was worried that I needed if I needed more help than just me. But luckily at this point, since I had dealt with a lot of my depression, I was still on the meds, and I felt a lot better, so I felt like I could make it through. And so after stopping, then finally, I felt like I could have one and kind of build it up to the place where I haven't been drunk since that year, but I can have a couple drinks and it's okay, and I also know that when I need, if at any point I'm feeling like I want to just get drunk, I've been very honest with my friends and family, so that if I tell them I want to get drunk, they can kind of help me through it instead of me just going and doing that. By myself. So that's kind of my basic story.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
That is awesome. That is fantastic. So I'm gonna just jump. I'm just gonna keep on the topic that we're already on. I have a bunch of
Sure.
stuff from earlier, but I do want to kind of go into the alcoholism a little bit, if that's what you call it. I'm not sure how you labeled it at this point, but was it a way when you first started doing it? Because like for me, I smoke a decent amount of weed, and I used to smoke a lot more. Um, And the reason I started smoking is because it was like the only time for a while that I didn't care about anything that was happening around me, and like just completely subsided my depression and anxiety. And now it's just a hobby to me. So was the reason you kind of got into this frame of like drinking alcohol every night, was it due to your mental health, or was it a part of making your mental health worse, better, whatever it might be?
Yeah, I think it was the coping mechanism. I couldn't deal with all the pressure of needing to be hot and all the time and needing to be kind of on the ball all of the time. There's a lot of pressure on me, obviously from myself, but also from everybody around me that expected me to be good. And so alcohol kind of gave me confidence in a way, of I mean, I felt like I could do anything when I was drinking, and oftentimes I did, and sometimes that's not the best thing that I could have decided to do. But regardless, it was a way for me to feel free and a way for me, when I was drinking, I was confident and I felt great. And eventually, that kind of subsides. It doesn't start to work as well, and so you do it more, and that's how it ended up being like before dance class, before auditions, before anything really. I would take a shot or two of liquid courage and get up there. But not really the greatest way to deal with things.
And the whole industry just has an insane amount of pressure.
Yes.
We talked about this just a couple of days ago with another one of Sarah's friends, and we've definitely talked about it in the past. It is just body shaming is entirely too common, and you're right in the sense that these managers are actually trying to get you to get a job. Like they are doing what they think is the only way to get you a job. What they think. I'm not sure if it is.
Yeah.
Of course
No,
not. I
it's
don't know.
not.
I don't know the exactly. I can't imagine, right? But that is their thought process going into this.
It
And I just
absolutely.
want to kind of know: is there ways we can change that as coaches? Ways that you think you can change that as individuals, like who are going into the industry, or just things we can tell individuals going into the industry to kind of put them at ease a little bit?
Yeah, I think, and I mean, just in the last few years, it feels like there's been a lot of work on diversity in dance and theater. And I know that there's still a ton more work to do. As far as what does an athletic body look like? It doesn't have to be stick thin. It can be, you can have your big muscular legs, you can have big muscular arms, you can have a whole layer of fat or two or five, if that's what is best for you and your body. And so looking at what does healthy really look like for you, and that should be okay for the industry, and for everybody else. I think it is something that you have to honestly talk to people about, because I don't think it's something that people are going to just do away with. There are still going to be the dancers that they want in sports bras and booty shorts, out there. But I think, if somebody had kind of told me how they were going to wanna look at me and maybe started talking to me about it younger, it might have helped just from, like, a me being able to say, "No, that's not the healthiest shape that my body should be taking, and I'm not going to do that." Um, but nobody really did, and it was really a thing throughout my, even my baton twirling career, that if you were bigger, you just weren't seen as athletic, and you couldn't possibly move as fast as everybody else, and you couldn't possibly be as good. um and so I think it's really got to be like a generational thing, almost, of us really pushing it, of every body is a healthy body as long as you're being healthy, and pushing that so that maybe the next generation, um and the next generation after that will eventually be able to look at people up on the stage that are a little bit bigger, are not the stick as thin human beings alive, and be satisfied with that. But right now, unfortunately, they think that that's what audiences want, and no statistic would prove that otherwise at this point. And maybe they're wrong, but there's not been enough testing to really know if that's not the truth. But right now, what they've been doing is successful, and so there's not really a reason for them to change that. So I don't know.
Yeah. It's like a story we hear time and time again. I mean, especially in the dance world, I think dance is like its own sort of beast as far as weight, height, the ideal body. And you bring up such a good point. Like, what is an athletic body? What's a healthy body? And I just want to say, like, during this quarantine time, this person that I don't really know her, but I feel like I know her. Her name is Megan Bowen. She started this company called Dance from Home, and it's like a dance company where she leads like dance classes online, but she's built up this social media presence now because I think she's like pretty tall, but she's has like not the typical chorus line body, like what is hired as like an ensemblist in a show or something like that, which is tall, skinny, very like dancer body. But she is a brilliant dancer and she does the work and she's just amazing, and she's brought a lot of awareness to that. But I wanted to say that I think that one way we can make a difference, which I'm totally guilty of, like of doing the opposite, like really bad at this, is like when you see a friend for the first time in a while and they have lost weight or something like that, and you're like, oh my God, you look great. Like just like that, just you mentioned that in your what you were saying, and like just those little comments of you look great and stuff like that. Like, why do we only use those when someone has lost weight and you're just like I don't know why. Like, why not use it when they look really happy or they, like it's just like such, but it's in my head that losing weight is the better, I don't know, but I like breaking that sort of habit of commenting on people's appearance in that way, even when you mean well and saying it, like it has an effect on the person that you're speaking to, and they may feel great like receiving that compliment, but I mean it's still it's like a positive affirmation, like that losing weight is good, or like in all cases. So
Sometimes it is, if that's
right.
what somebody's really wants and they're doing it really healthily, but it's not always good. And so making sure that you check in with them and just say, hey, just wanted to make sure that you're doing this healthily. I would love to talk to you about what you're doing, just to make sure that they're checking in. I mean, the same as if somebody gains a lot of weight. Is that necessarily a bad thing? No. But like maybe they're not being healthy. And so just making sure that your friends are being healthy and are happy in that, in whatever it is, then I think that that's really important. But you're absolutely right. I mean, I think it's going to come down to us talking to our kids and the kids that we teach and interact with, and just don't comment on the weight thing. I think that could really help because I grew up with coaches and stuff like pinching my underarms and pinching my stomach and like that. There's just no way that I wasn't going to develop some sort of body issues.
I think one of my favorite lines I've heard on this podcast to date happened in your first response to this, Maddie, is you said, every body is a healthy body if they are being healthy. I think that is just an unbelievable line right there. It's so simple, yet it just makes so much sense. You don't have to worry about how you look. I mean, obviously, this world has created a system where we do, but
Right.
if you are putting in the work, you are doing whatever it is that keeps you healthy. I mean, I'm not someone who does a lot of exercise or anything like that. I'm not a example of health. That being said, I think it's extremely important, no matter what, to do at least a little bit of exercise here and there, and eat every once in a while, and whether it's in moderation or just stuff that isn't fast food over and over again. And like these little things, like you just doing these are what is considered healthy. And from that point on, it doesn't matter what you look like. All right, you are doing your job. You are doing what you're supposed to, and you're looking fantastic in how whatever that might be. So I really like that line. Wanted to bring it back up one more time. Thank you for it. And then I'll leave questioning for someone else, as I'm just gonna keep going.
So like I just want to say, like, I was also kind of like, when I first moved to LA, like I was also kind of like in the dance industry. Like I always wanted to like work with like J-Lo and stuff like that, and just be background dancer. And like I was in college and I was in Berkeley. I was like in a bunch of dance groups, and I felt that pressure of like, oh my god, like you're not moving too fast, and like especially in the hip hop world, and it's just like you have to do a lot of like, a lot of difficult moves, and it's just I think people as far as weight, and I like people like Lizzo who does eat healthy but still love her body and just embraces it. And I just think that people like that we need more. And it's just like, and she makes fun of it. She just posted something on Instagram where every day she talks to her stomach, to her belly, and she just precedes confidence. And I'm just like, that is amazing. Like she teaches like healthy eating, but at the same time, I think just loving your body is just like a start, you know what I mean? And it's just like,
Absolutely.
and it's just like, I I see like what you said, Sarah, was like when people say, oh, you look so good when people lose weight. I think we come from that because I think when we see people lose weight, they think that they're more confident. But I've also said to people where it's like when I see them lose weight, and I tell them like, are you okay? You look too skinny. Like, and it's just like I tell them that like, are you like starting to become bulimic or something like that? Are you okay? Like it doesn't look good on you. Like even like friends that I've had who are used to be super muscular, but then now they're just skinny, and it doesn't look good. It looks like their face is just like doesn't look good on them, and it's just like, you know what I mean? I just feel like having that confidence of just like healthy eating, is just, I think that's important too. And it's just like, I just feel like when we see people maybe gain weight as well, I think that's really good thing. Maybe that's what they need for their body, so.
I mean, weight's always going to be a sensitive thing to bring up to people no matter what, even if you have the best intentions, even reaching out, if you were concerned about someone's weight, like it's still something that I think you have to be cognizant of how you're saying it and bringing it up to the person just to make sure that you're not going to be the root of some sort of problem or issue also as well. But I like you bring up Lizzo, and yeah, her level of confidence is like out of this world, right? And I just imagine that like at some point I haven't approached this point yet, but I hope I do. But like when your level of confidence about your body, like it must shift. Like growing up, like we're sort of like, especially with social media, you have this sort of like idea of like what you want to look like or what your dream body is or whatever it is. And like I mean, Maddie, do you like love your body? Like are you at that point where you can like where you say to yourself like, yeah, I'm happy with the skin I'm in, like I really am? Because I'm not there yet, and I don't know if I ever will be, but I imagine that there is like some sort of magical shift where like all of a sudden you're like, yes, like this is good for
I
me.
don't
This
know
is
that
it.
there is a magical shift because I think even Lizzo has talked about how every single day she has to say that to herself or else she won't believe it. And so I think it's a process of that you constantly every single day have to work on, right? It's like choosing to love anything, choosing to love a partner. You have to wake up every single day and say like, I'm going to do what it takes to love you today, and every single day you have to make that reaffirmation, and I think that that's what you have to do with your body too. I mean, I don't know that there is ever going to be a day that I am just wake up and love my body. I'm still like I still have issues with looking at the mirror and being like, "Oh, I think you gained a little bit of weight here, or this doesn't look as good, or this isn't as great." But I think that there are moments when I'm super pleased with it and I love it for what it is, and then other moments when it's not. And so I think it's just a constant roller coaster, and you have to just know that every single day you're going to have to work on it. Just like every other relationship in your life, you're going to have to decide every day, and it's not going to be easy. Some days are easier than others.
I think that's a big thing too. Is like you said, every time you look in the mirror, you might notice something a little different. And that literally could just be for the day. I mean, your body can accumulate water weight in weird ways, and just like puff up or bloat, or you're just gonna be bloating that day, whatever it might be. There's times where this stuff happens, and you look bad, and you kind of have to take a step back and say, all right, I know I don't like, this is not this is just a one-off. Let's revisit it tomorrow, revisit it the next day, revisit it the next day. Obviously, if it continues to go in a direction, then maybe we have to worry about like eating healthier or something like that. But in the long run, it's just, we can't look at ourselves on an individual day by day basis and make an assumption on how we're changing, because the whole point of change is over time. So it's a dangerous thing to be like I know people who have who swear off mirrors at these times, like will not look at mirrors for like extended periods of time. Like, I'm not saying that's beneficial either. Like, there's no real right way to do it. It's just like you said, as long you got to keep every day affirming yourself in some way or another, whatever it might be.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, one of the best things I did was get rid of a scale, and I still haven't been back on a scale. You can actually ask your doctor's office to not weigh you. I don't know if people knew that. But that was one of the things that my doctor told me way back when. And I have used it because I don't want to know. I know that I do the very best on my body. I try to work out a decent amount. I try to eat as healthy as I can. I'm not fitting in my clothes or anything, like, it's not a concern, and so therefore, I don't even wanna know. I don't care if I'm 150 pounds, because that'll just bring me right back into, "Oh, no, I need to be, lower than that," or whatever, and sometimes doctors might mean well when they look at your scale number and say, "Oh, it's not normal for your height," or whatever, but what is even normal for your height? I mean, I'm 5'2", and I have always been a solid block of muscle. I think I am somewhere around 140, and I am by no means, like, fat. I mean, like, I wear, and so, just because my muscle has always weighed more means that that scale number was higher, and so, for me, that scale was really important to get rid of, and just to be able to look in the mirror and say, "Okay, if I don't like how my abs look right now, then go do your ab exercises." Instead of worrying about the overall change that you really can't change, eh, that number on the scale, you can't change it quickly. Nothing that you do quickly will be healthy.
Yeah, it's true. Getting that number randomly too is not great either. I mean, I understand for a lot of people who like to weigh themselves as they go, like through a process of going on a diet or change or exercising more, and they want to kind of watch that progress actually happen. But in these situations where you're not going for new progress and you're already doing whatever effort you can, you're right. It's just a number in the end, and not focusing on that number is a big part of being confident in yourself. But I do want to kind of jump back to some of the things you said earlier, specifically about your parents, and then also the talk therapy that you tried for a little bit. So you kept this from your parents. Was there ever a time where you're like, I should let them know?
I think there were. There were a few times when, like, I received an award at the end of my junior year, and it was one of the most prestigious awards that we could have had, and it was at this big banquet. And I had gotten very, very drunk prior to going in, and had to walk up there and stumbled, almost fell on the staircase, and it was a really embarrassing moment. And I remember thinking that night that I should say something, that maybe this has gotten to a not great place. Um, but I was also embarrassed, because I think, with my parents, like, they have a lot of expectations of me, and not necessarily like, you need to be a doctor, lawyer, whatever, but expectations of, like, we expect you to be okay. Like, we have given you everything that you could want in your life, and we have taught you really well. And so we expect that you're going to figure this out and that you are going to be okay. And so going back and admitting that to them would have been really, really hard for me. And I just don't think I was at the point where I could admit that I was anything less than great and less than exceeding their expectations. And I mean, for me, it it wasn't affecting as much as I think it might have for a lot of people. I still graduated the valedictorian of my class. I was the highest functioning alcoholic you could have met in your life, and nobody really knew. And so I don't. So there, I think, was a part of me that didn't think it was a big deal because I was still highly functioning and I was still all of the markers that said that I was succeeding were coming through for me. And so there wasn't any indication, and I didn't think I needed to bring it to anybody's attention that maybe everything wasn't as okay as they thought. I have always had an image problem as far as like wanting to appear perfect, put together. And and it's been really hard, and I still struggle with that one today. I still don't, it takes a lot for me to tell people that I'm struggling with something or that something is going on. People at work have complained about it, that I don't tell them what is going on, and it makes me seem cold, to people, but I think it's just part of that whole thing that I've struggled my whole life with, which is needing to be perfect, so
Yeah.
Uh,
I don't know.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that, like, for example, I went to your showcase in
You
New
did.
York City, which that's the showcase the night that you had sort of like you had a bad night that night.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I had no idea.
I know.
I mean, like, I had no idea. Like, hearing that was total news to me. Your family was there. Like, I sat with your family, and that's just astounding to me. I never really knew all of this. I probably knew like 1/16 of it. So it's really, really eye opening. And I think that my favorite part of your story is the fact that even though maybe you're not available to open up to everyone all of this stuff, and you still aren't, but or like telling your coworkers like what's going on and stuff like that, but you did say that like you have admitted that you need help, like when you feel the need to get drunk or something like that, to have friends or family to like reach out to, like that place of vulnerability to be like, I need help like right now, like in this moment. Like I can't imagine ever doing that. Like to say ahead of time, like I might reach out to you in the future and I might need you to like, you know, help me through this. Like I can't imagine doing that and I think that's like something that's amazing.
It
It's
took a long time to
badass.
get there, and I'm still not perfect at it, obviously. Sometimes, my partner will come home and he'll be like, "You're not in a good place." I'm like, I'm fine, it's fine." And then it's not fine later. So it's also a testament to the people around me, and I know that it was news to you it was such a tough time, and I was very drunk that night when you were there, and, again, right, like, nobody would have known, um, but, that was by design, and I am really trying to be open, and that was actually why when Sarah asked me if I wanted to come on the show, it took me a really long time to do so, and even then, I almost canceled on this a few times in the last week, because this is really the first time I think that I'm really owning up to all of this, and it is tough for me, but I think it's also important because I don't want other people to think that they can't make it through something like this too, and that they're not alone in their struggles. They're not the only one that's feeling that way, and it kind of felt like that when I was going through it.
It's also up to us, like who we choose to let in and when,
Yeah.
like that's up to each individual person. I think that's important to remember.
Yeah, I mean, like the way you were saying about like you're a high functioning like alcoholic, like I totally relate to that because I was in the industry, in the media industry, and I was touring and I was doing really well, and I went to I went to Berkeley, and nobody, and all my parents cared about was grades. And if they saw my grades are good, that means I'm good, and they didn't know I was like doing a lot of these drugs just to cope, and drinking a lot, and they didn't know that. And it's just like, I thought I was doing well as well, because I was like, hey, I'm doing good, I'm balancing everything. I was like, I was dancing in school, I was doing all these activities, and everything was good, and I was getting paid and blah blah blah. But mentally, I was like, not okay. Like, I was just
Yep.
like why, like, that's why I wanted to get away from that. And it's just, I wanted to just really rediscover myself, and just realign my soul, I guess. So yeah, I totally get where you're coming from.
That's where it becomes impossible for people to realize or get better, is when they are hitting these like milestones and markers that are the ones that are set for you. Like you are told to, like you say, get good grades. You are told to, I don't know, be on a sports team, whatever it might be. And when you're doing those things, and you're doing those things at a high level, the things around you don't seem to matter much. You kind of say, you know what, it doesn't matter. I can, like, what are you talking about? I just killed that test like 30 minutes ago. Let me get drunk. Like, whatever. It's now I
Exactly.
want to feel that fun or enjoyment or that escape from the pressure of constantly having to get these good grades. Right. So it becomes so difficult. Um, and I just kind of want to jump back to you, Maddie, as we don't have a lot of time left, and I still have a bunch I want to know a little bit about. But you talked a little bit about talk therapy, and how it sounded like it didn't work out for you. I couldn't really fully tell. Have you tried it since this first time? Would you try it again? And do you think there's a reason why it didn't work out that first time?
Yeah, so it didn't work out for me. I went through, they had like an on-campus uh, therapy thing that you could do. And so I went through that, and I don't think it worked out because I don't think I wanted it to work out. Um, I still at that point was not convinced that I needed help. I thought that I was still okay. Again, I was still meeting all of the markers. I was in showcase. I was doing really well. And so I didn't think that I really needed help. I just needed to be able to get back to getting out of bed in the morning. Um, and I am pretty, when I set my mind to do something, I will. And so I was like, oh, I can solve this by myself. I don't really need somebody else. And so I think like I did help myself through that. But I think I just sat in that office, and she would ask me questions and I would give her answers, but there wasn't any critical thinking being done on my part. And it also, I think it would have needed to go on for a lot longer, for me to feel any type of trust of this person. Like I said, I mean, I don't open up to the vast majority of people. And so for me not to know her, I know that for some people that's awesome. Like they can't admit it to people that they know, and so they can admit things to someone that they don't really know. But I absolutely was not prepared to do that, to admit to anyone, including myself, that things weren't going well. And so it just didn't work out for me. And I don't think that I don't think she did anything wrong necessarily, but I don't think she made me feel, um, like she really cared all that much either, because she was free and it felt free when you went in there. I don't know how else to describe that, but just not like super interested in me. And so I did it for like a few weeks, I think maybe like a month, and then I I just told them that it wasn't working and I didn't wanna do it anymore, and I was better, see, and I was getting out of bed and I was okay, and so I didn't have to do it anymore. I have since, talked to some people. I actually have a cousin who, is a mental health counselor, and, so I had taken to talking to her a little bit, because she was someone who I knew but didn't know well enough, and I knew that she would have my confidence because she was family. And so I did do some talking through with her. But to be honest, I probably should go back to therapy at some point. It's one of those things that's on the list of things to do. But just hasn't been my thing. And I know that it works. Like I've seen it work for a lot of my friends. But I think just for some reason, for me, talking about things doesn't make me feel any better.
I understand. I did the same thing. That was my history of therapy too. Did a couple of sessions with one person, and like I felt like I already knew what I was telling them things I already knew about myself,
Exactly. Yeah.
and like I didn't feel like anybody needed to hear it, because if I know it, then that's it. But I also still am a huge advocate for it. So I
Yeah,
stand.
absolutely. If it
I stand.
works, like, I mean, I've seen it work. And so I think that everybody should do it if it works. But you
Yeah,
should also I mean, mental health is very not one size fits all. And so you need to figure out what your therapy equivalent is. You have to have something. And so like for me, figuring out how to sing for joy again, like not because I had to, but because I wanted to, and to like to let out some of my feelings and stuff like that. That was a therapy for me, as was going hiking and being in nature and being calm.
yeah. That's
There's a
amazing.
great quote of the week: mental health is not one size fits all. So there
I
you
already
go.
have my quote from this one. I already have my quote. Everybody has a healthy body if they're being healthy. So with that being said, Maddie, I know you said you were afraid to come on here initially, and there's times where you were thinking about canceling. You do know that, I mean, if you are ever uncomfortable, these don't air for a couple of weeks. You can say no. We do not need to air it. Just so you know.
You can
That being
air it. It's
said,
good for
thank
me.
you. That being said, I think it was fantastic, and I was super happy to have you on. And I just think that your story is going to at least resonate with a large group of people. The 150 people that are going to be listening. But overall, Maddie, we appreciate it so much. With that, we're going to have to say goodbye. Any last things that you want to plug, tell people about yourself, places they can reach out to you if they want to talk to someone who may be going through the exact same thing? Shoot
Yeah.
that out right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I am always open to help people through their own mental health, eating disorders, anything like that, even if you just want to chat. I'm on Instagram at Adventure Bay, and Bay is Bhey. Feel free to reach out, send me a message. I don't really have anything else to plug except for please be good people, and really try to help those around you.
That's a hell of a plug. Uh, with that being said, we're gonna sign off and say thank you one more time to Maddie, and thank you to all the people who are listening at home. We're gonna continue to turn that mental health into mental wealth.
Thank you guys so much.